Hi, my name is Guidy Mamann. This is Durriya Bharmal. We're both from the law firm of Mamann, Sandaluk, and Kingwell. Thank you for joining us again. Today, Durriya, we're going to be talking about the spousal interview. As you know, Canadian citizens have the right to sponsor their spouses, both sexes, because we recognize today same-sex relationships, common law partnerships, and conjugal relationships. So the question is, how do you prepare for that interview? Okay, so not everybody gets interviewed, right, Durriya?
Not everyone gets interviewed. You're only going to get interviewed if there's high doubts about your relationship being genuine, bona fide. So those are more likely interviews. If you've got a previous immigration history, you could be interviewed. So,
right. So basically, if you're being interviewed, that is the exception rather than the norm, because about 70-80% of people are not getting interviewed. So if you're getting interviewed, you can assume that the officer has some questions that they need to ask you. You have not satisfied them based on the material that you filed with your application that yours is a genuine relationship. There could be other issues also, but generally that's the one that they want to know about. So rule number one about your spousal interview.
Read your application. Know what you've written, know what your consultant or lawyer has prepared for you. It's very important. There's nothing in there that you haven't been through. It's all your life, so make sure that you've read your application inside out before you go for that interview.
That's right. If there's an error, you should bring that error up to the officer and say, look, either I got it wrong, or my consultant got it wrong, or my wife or husband got it wrong. This fact is not correct. So that's very important. The next rule, don't lie. Don't lie in your application. Don't lie at your interview. Now, I understand that not every relationship is the same and that people do things differently. So, for example, it may be traditionally in your religion, your culture to do things in a certain way. Fine. But don't lie that you've done something to try to make your application better, because you could get caught. Interviews, sometimes if in an overseas situation, only the applicant has to appear for the interview, but if the wife is there, the spouse is there, the common law partner is there, they could be called in, and all of a sudden you're separated and you're asked the same questions separately, and the officer is going to compare. So if one of you is lying or the other one is trying to come up with a story in order to cover what they think their partner is going to be saying, chances are you're going to be caught. You could be hit with misrepresentation, and that's a whole different story. So do not lie in the application. Do not lie at the interview. Next.
Addresses. Ensure that your addresses match on your driver's licenses, utility bills, anything that comes to your home that's joined in some form or format. Ensure that the addresses match. You can't be maintaining two different addresses individually, and therefore you could be considered into a non-genuine
Right, so this applies to people who have lived together. Obviously, if you've never lived together, then that's less of a concern. Right. But if you both claim that you've been living at 123 Main Street for the last 3 years, but his driver's license says one thing and the partner's says something else, that's sort of evidence that you're not. So what you want to do is you want to be up to date on all of those things. The telephone bill, the cell phone bills, utility bills, as I said, driver's licenses, other things like that. Do not forget your invoices that you get online. For example, if you get a bank statement and you get it online and you haven't bothered to update your address, you can bet that an officer will look at that statement and say, well, it says here that this is a different address. Maybe you aren't living together. So please consider every piece of mail that you get and try to bring them into sync. Okay, next.
Leases, property, joint property. Ensure that you've got both names on it.
If you're living together at the same place,
correct,
presumably you're both on the lease. Home ownership, generally if you can, own the property jointly. That's evidence that you are committed to each other. With leases, a lot of leases say that you cannot have a second occupant without the consent of the landlord. So if you're living there for years and then your partner joins you and lives in there, they're not seen on the lease. The officers are going to say, well, hold on a second. You were supposed to get consent You didn't do that, maybe she never lived with you or he never lived with you. Please try to bring this all up to date. Joint bank accounts and credit cards. There's no law that says you have to have a joint bank account. There's no law that says you have to have a joint credit card account. But it is evidence that you are committed to each other. If she makes what she makes and she keeps it in her account, and I make what I make and I keep it in my account, and we each pay our own expenses, it doesn't look like you have fused together as a couple. It looks like you're trying to keep your important affairs separately. So a joint bank account tells us that you have blended your lives together. It's kind of one of the important ones. But there's no point in having a joint bank account if you're not going to use it, right? If it's going to be dormant, you can't just point to the joint bank account and say, here it is. That's proof that we are committed to each other. In fact, it's the opposite. It's proof that you are not committed to each other. So try as much as you can to pool your resources together and demonstrate some trust for one another. Next.
Wills, insurance policies. Usually there is a beneficiary attached to such kind of documents. Ensure that the beneficiary on the will or the insurance policy or anything that really needs a beneficiary, somebody that you're going to leave an estate to, has your spouse or partner's name on it.
That's right. Obviously, if you're not leaving anything to your spouse or your common law partner, it doesn't suggest that this is a relationship of great importance. Pictures is always one of the fun ones. Right. So everybody wants to show you how beautiful they look at their wedding. Of course, we want those pictures, but we also want to see those pictures include all of the important people who were at the wedding. So even if your relative is not somebody you love or anything like that, make sure that they're there. You want to see pictures of the parents, you want to see pictures of the in-laws, you want to see pictures of the cousins, you want to see pictures of the grandparents. All of those people attending demonstrate that this was an important event because you included everybody. Even if, for example, you're afraid that, let's take this example. Let's suppose you're getting married inside of Canada. Let's deviate for a second. And you want your relatives overseas to come, but you don't think that they're going to get a visa. Apply anyways, right? Apply anyways. Get the refusal that they applied for the visa, it got denied, and then use that as proof that you tried to have your grandparents come from overseas, but the immigration officer denied you that opportunity. They cannot hold that against you and say, well, why didn't you invite your grandparents? Why weren't your grandparents there? And of course, when I mean grandparents, I mean any important relative, okay, including your parents. So we want to see pictures not only of the wedding, we want to see pictures in different seasons, winter, summer, different places, different holidays. We don't care if you look good in the pictures, if you look terrible in the pictures. In fact, some of those pictures are the best pictures, just lying around, watching TV, making barbecues, doing those kinds of things. Don't worry. Those are the things that all normal people do. That is what we want to see in the videos, okay? Those scenes tell us that you've traveled together, you've been together through all those seasons. Next.
Letters of support. Support from friends, family, people who know you. Important people, don't necessarily have to be important, your neighbors, people who know you as a couple, people who have, been in touch with you. It could be a neighbor that you had barbecues with. Get them to write letters that are telling them about how they've met you, how they know you, and details on how you were first introduced to the other partner, for example. You could be a childhood friend saying, I know this person since we were born in the neighborhood, and we want to, I've known him his life, and introduce me to his partner. So
most important thing, right, is to get the documentation in order. The person should identify who they are, their name, their address, and contact information. A cell phone, if they have a home phone, and email. Those things should be included in all those letters so that immigration officers can verify. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about is a very, very disturbing trend that we see in immigration. And what we're starting to see now is clients attending their interviews, and when they get to their interviews, the officer asks to see their cell phone or their tablet. And the applicant is caught by surprise. All of their personal and intimate information, personal, commercial, business, professional, whatever, is in there, and the officer is asking to see the device and to unlock it. They then proceed to go through all of your emails, your address book, your photographs, looking for clues as to maybe you are still in contact with your ex-wife, your ex-partner, your ex-girlfriend. Looking to see if you worked illegally in Canada maybe. Look at emails, offers of employment, confirmation that you were maybe doing something in Canada that you shouldn't have been doing. These are the kinds of things the officers are looking for. But beyond that, what they are doing is they are now extracting information, for example, of your in-laws. They get their phone numbers and randomly call them without notice and start asking them questions about you, information that you supplied, and to see if those in-laws, those relatives, those friends are answering those questions in the same way. Now, whether or not this is legal is a huge question. This is a major and grotesque invasion of privacy, in my opinion. Now, the courts, I don't believe, have yet to rule on this. Now, we know that when you cross the border, you submit to that examination because you are crossing an international boundary. And for whatever reason, the courts have accepted this type of violation of your rights, even in circumstances where there doesn't appear to be any real concern about the traveler. But here, we are not crossing a border. An officer is going to get information, personal information, not only about you, the applicant, but your Canadian citizen, spouse, or common law partner, or permanent resident. They have rights to privacy as well. And all of the letters, photographs, etc., that you have, emails and photographs that you've exchanged that are recorded on that device are now subject to examination by the officer according to their practice. I'm not saying that this is legal. It'd be very interesting to see if clients were to refuse to hand over those devices, what the risks are and what the outcome would be. Until the courts have ruled on this, you should speak to your professional advisor, your lawyer, your consultant, to see whether or not they have a position on this. I would, as I said, I think this is a very disturbing trend. I think the federal privacy commissioner should get involved. This is not what immigration is for. I don't know if we're going to see a time soon where an officer is not even going to examine it, is just going to take it and do a data dump of all the content on the phone for examination later, which, you know, if you're allowed to examine it then and there, why can't you just copy it and review it later? So these are very important issues. Whether you take your phone to your interview or not is up to you. Overseas applicants, only the applicant is required to attend the interview. Inland applications, they tend to be interviewed. Both partners get interviewed, usually separately. So that's it. I hope that this has been useful. Durriya, anything else that you want to throw in there?
No, I think you've covered it all.
Great. Thank you so much for watching. Guidy, Mamann, Durriya, Bharmal, Mamann, Sandaluk, and Kingwell LLP. We're in downtown Toronto. Our address is 103 Church. Our phone number 416-862-0000. You can always look us up at www.migrationlaw.com. If you have any ideas or any topics you want us to cover, please send us a little email at info@migrationlaw.com. Thank you very much for watching.